The Oklahoma City Thunder fall to the Houston Rockets, ending their road trip. What went wrong down the stretch of this game? We're going to try to find out.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Ryland Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Ryland_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're going to dive into that Thunder loss to the Houston Rockets, ending their 4-game road trip. What went wrong down the stretch? Jalen Williams got it going in the second half a little bit. SGA was phenomenal, but who has to step up after games like this? We'll talk about it all on today's show. So a 4-game road trip that I still, even after that stinging loss to Houston, will give an A+ to. I think that a 3-1 record, if I told you that they would walk out of here with a 3-1 mark last week, you would have been glowing with how well you thought this was going to go. And they handled Sacramento, they handled Golden State, they handled Los Angeles, and you really look at this game and it comes down to the late game situation that doomed Oklahoma City down the stretch. And even this week, you had more good than bad in late game situations. Tonight, though, was not a banner night at all in terms of how you finish out games. I thought overall it starts from the beginning, where the Rockets were clearly the team that were more invested, whether that be emotionally, physically, effort-wise. Like, they were winning all of those categories that are hard to quantify. But if you look at these two teams, which team do you believe had more juice, had more chutzpah in their game? In a battle of the number 1 versus number 2 seed, it was clearly Houston. Now, there's reasons for that. You can mention this is the 4th straight road game for Oklahoma City, and that's been an 8-day trip, and that's very taxing, very difficult. But it's still a fact that Houston wanted this game more. And for the most part, Houston out-executed Oklahoma City. I mean, there was a little flurry back and forth in the first quarter. Houston took control from the end of the first quarter all the way through the second frame, and then OKC made a great run right before halftime to get things right back within striking distance. And so this was a back-and-forth game. This was a game that Houston clearly wanted, and you can tell by their reaction following the game, from their jubilee on the court, from their locker room Instagram lives, and how they've been talking post-game. Like, they clearly wanted this game. The Rockets are still in the business of making statements. They're trying to prove that they've turned the corner. And so on your home court, you won a game like this. Now, the Thunder, to their credit, got control of this game in the third quarter, got an 8-point lead, but could not maintain through the end of the game. They could not maintain that control. So they erased the Rockets' 11-point lead. They grew an 8-point lead in their own right, and they still lose this game that had 16 ties and 7 lead changes. And down the stretch, it was just a abnormal game. I mean, this does not have to be a story unless the Thunder let it be. Like, that's what it comes down to. Because as of right now, this is a one-off. This is a game where you should have fouled at 25 seconds. You didn't foul until there's 5 seconds left, and then that ended the game. Because even with that Jalen Williams prayer of a triple that went in, you did not have enough time to come back in this game. Because you'd play the foul game, you don't have a timeout. The Rockets iced their free throws with Fred VanVleet, and the game's over. You were putting your hopes at that point on a 31-foot jumper from Jalen Williams. And as far as full court inbounds go, it was a pretty good look, but that's not where you want your hopes to be. So you didn't have a timeout late in that game to advance the ball after getting the J-Dub Hail Mary. You didn't extend the game by fouling quicker, and that is never a good sign, right? Like, that's not what you want to put out there. It's not a good thing to hang your hat on. I know that Mark took accountability for it post-game. He mentioned how in the timeout, they were discussing their foul strategy, and one of the things that they didn't cover was what happens if you miss this shot and there's no differential on the shot clock and game clock. Do you still foul? The answer is yes, you absolutely foul. And I get it. Like, you didn't necessarily go over it and the players are on their own because it wasn't gone over. But by the same token, you're not exactly playing in the Mecca. With all due respect to the Toyota Center, the coaching staff could have been barking out, hey, foul, 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 and gotten their message across even in the midst of live action. So that was a massive misstep that Mark's wearing. He has to wear it. It was not good. But it was also very rare. Like, the Thunder rarely make these late game miscues. You cannot rack up 57 wins and make these late game blunders. You also can't be the 1 seed in the West right now and make these late game blunders. So the reason why I say it's not a story unless the Thunder make it one, as of right now, this is a one-off. As of right now, you trust the Thunder not to do that again, but boy, was that bad. Like, that's textbook bad, because you have two of the best difficult shot makers, to where if you just keep extending the game, keep fouling, do what the Celtics did. That Celtics Cavs into the game lasted 15 minutes of real time, because they kept fouling and praying that the Cavs would miss a free throw. Ended up to be null and void, but they still kept giving themselves a chance. And when you have Shai and J-Dub, you want to give yourself a chance. And the Thunder didn't tonight. They didn't give themselves a chance down the stretch, because when that Isaiah Joe foul happened at 5 seconds and you had no timeouts to advance the ball after you got that initial J-Dub three, there's not much you can do. There's not much you can do in that limited amount of time. So, again, I just think that this is going to be a one-off thing, but it's something to monitor moving forward, because that was the first time that you saw the Thunder, you can call it looking out of sorts, just not doing the right things. Like, they weren't doing the right things because they just were not fouling in that moment. You can point back to Mark's, challenge that he lost and thus losing the timeout. I think that was a spot where you were probably going to take a timeout anyway. And so why not challenge it? And at times a challenge can kind of extend those timeouts a little bit. Maybe that's not the case, and he didn't want a timeout there, and it really was a genuine challenge. And at that point, it would be a rare misstep, in the sense of his bench is usually good at telling him when to and to not challenge. And if they told him to challenge that, that's tough. Like that was never going to get overturned to Oklahoma City's advantage on that challenge that he lost. But it is what it is. I just do not like the way the Thunder handled it down the stretch. And if Shai makes that mid-range jumper that he makes more often than not, most of this stuff is wiped under the bridge. So I'll fully admit that on the front end. But when you don't make that shot, you've got to keep punching and you've got to keep yourself in the game. And I don't think they did that tonight whenever you don't foul. That being said, I still want to put a bow on this first segment by saying to go 3-1 on this road trip is really good. Now, you've got to capitalize on it. You can't go 3-1 on the tough West Coast trip and then, get caught with your pants down against Utah Tuesday. Like, that's a must-win game to keep stacking these wins. You've got a very softened portion of your schedule here coming up that you've got to capitalize on, or else you've curried all this goodwill on this road trip for no reason. So whenever you play Utah, you got to win. Like, when you play Toronto on Thursday, you got to win. Like, Toronto is a fun team to watch. They're also the perfect tanking team. Every game's competitive. Every game's electric to watch. They're playing quality basketball for 40 minutes, and then they lose in the final 8. You've got to make them lose in the final 8. Then you play New Orleans, who we know the troubles that they've seen this year on the injury report and just on the court in general to close the week on Saturday. So you got to head to a 3-0 week, really, this week after the 3-1 road trip. It starts on Tuesday against Utah in the NBA Cup, where you're playing for your NBA Cup of life, for whatever that's worth, on Tuesday on the blue court. But I did think that really this game came down to A, the Rockets wanted it more, B, the Thunder were not themselves down the stretch. We'll talk more about this game coming up, including SGA's big night, Jalen Williams getting it going in the second half, and more. But first, I want to say right now, but good friends over at BetterHelp, go check out BetterHelp today, because I think that we can all understand that we could see and use the benefits of therapy, but we always have an excuse, right? It's always, well, it's the holidays. We're extremely busy. How can you take time out of your busy schedule to go find the brick and mortar building to seek therapy whenever you've got holiday shopping, you've got get-togethers, parties, you've got your everyday life that doesn't stop just because all these holidays start. And let's face it, when it gets cold outside, when it gets chilly, maybe there's a little flurry of snow that rarely happens in Oklahoma. Well, you don't want to leave your house anyway. You want to stay cozied up during the winter. You can do all of that. You can maintain your busy schedule. You can stay cozy in your house, and you can get the benefits of therapy at BetterHelp, because BetterHelp is an online therapy service entirely online, entirely flexible and suited around your schedule, designed for your convenience. All you do is fill out this brief questionnaire. They'll match you with a licensed therapist, and away you go, receiving the benefits of therapy. If that initial match is not the perfect one for you, no problem. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge until you find the right one for you. So go get the benefits of therapy. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp.com. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. The Houston Rockets win this game 119-116. The Rockets held an 11-point lead at one point. The Thunder had an 8-point lead, 16 ties, 7 lead changes. The Rockets out-rebound OKC 51-46. The Rockets, to their credit, only 10 turnovers. The Thunder only had 7. But whenever you only have the 10, right, against this Thunder team that's identity is bred in forcing turnovers, creating havoc, and getting out in transition, that's a huge win for Houston. So it's a huge win for Houston. And I think that when you look at it, that was part of the difference. They protected the basketball. They shot 35% from the three-point line, 41% from the floor. And transition points, despite having more turnovers than the Thunder, Houston won fast break points, 15-13. Houston won second chance points, 26-16. And the Thunder did win points in the paint because they were able to so thoroughly get there. Of course, you have Shai with a foot in the paint. You have some really nice cutters on this team. And so they routinely win inside. The Thunder on the flip side shot worse from three. They shot better from the floor by 3%, and they shot the same at the charity stripe. So this was a game in which it was very winnable. This was a game in which you had many opportunities, but down the stretch, there was a few things that ended up hurting you. So when you look at this game, you're already down Chet and Alex Caruso, two of the best defenders in the NBA. Then Lou Dort only plays 26 minutes because he fouls out in this contest. And it was kind of a giveaway foul, in my opinion, of like sometimes whenever you're playing with that foul marker, you have to find ways to not give up fouls, so to say. You have to be more cautious. And when you're playing with 5 fouls, you can't go diving in for every rebound and for every loose ball. And that's the stuff that makes Lou Dort great. And I get you still want to play your game whenever you have fouls, but there has to be a give and take there of being measured. Overall, though, why I think that the Lou Dort loss was a big deal is because he was electric defensively. I mean, he had 2 blocks, he had a steal, he was walling up at the rim. You know how he harasses players on the perimeter. Offensively, though, he had 6 assists, 1 shy of his career high. His career high is 7 assists. He was really showing you the strides he's made as a decision maker. And that decision making, I think we often look at, in his own words, this is Lou Dort saying that he cut out bad shots and that led to more efficiency offensively. That's true. He's also improved as a playmaker that doesn't get enough credit because it's not in your face. I mean, this time it is with 6 assists, but he's learned how to swing the ball better. He's learned how to have these hockey assists and how to pass to a pass for this offense. And that's been huge for his both percentages from the floor and the three, but also huge for keeping a Thunder offense in rhythm, a team that can lose their rhythm at times throughout a game. And so Lou Dort a +2 in this game. I thought that he was really good. It was a shame whenever he fouled out. And so now whenever you see Lou Dort foul out, you played the rest of this game without your top 3 defenders. I mean, you didn't have Lou Dort. You already didn't have Caruso and Chet. And that puts a strain on you whenever you move down the ladder. This also was not a banner night from Jalen Williams. Now, he did salvage it in the second half, but he finishes with 22 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, a steal, and a block. He shot 33% from the floor. Now, in the second half, he shot 40-something% from the floor, 41%, I believe, from the floor. He only shot 2 for 7 from three. And so Jalen Williams was able to still make his presence felt, especially after intermission. But for the Thunder to win under these circumstances, with all these injuries and all that's gone against them, it is an unfair expectation, but it is true. You have to see a better performance from Jalen Williams. But I thought you got what you needed from Shai. I thought Shai was his MVP self. 32 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. He shot 52% from the floor, 3 for 7 from three. He had a sequence that I thought could have put it away for the Thunder, in the sense of if they let it snowball. They didn't. That you didn't get that Thunder avalanche after this sequence, but it was a bucket. It was a transition jab step three. It was a steal and slam, and it really grew that lead to that 8-point mark that the Thunder, had their largest lead of the night. And I thought that could have been the tide turning for Oklahoma City. Ultimately, they let the momentum shift back to Houston, but that was one of the real only times that the Thunder owned the momentum and the flow of the game, and that was all due to SGA, who in this game was electric driving to the basket. His ball handling skills are elite. The way that he can navigate through traffic and get to the rim. I don't know what the guy should do to get free throws. I mean, he got 11 of them tonight, but there were times where he's getting raked over the face and no call. I don't know what this whole team has to do to get free throws. This was a better outing from J-Dub at the free throw line. It just was not put together with a bunch of other stuff. So, for example, J-Dub, who has had a horrendous whistle. I mean, it is borderline criminal, the whistle that Jalen Williams is not getting. He got to the line for 7 free throw attempts today, went 6 for 7 at the charity stripe. Shai went 9 for 11. But other than that, the Thunder could not buy a foul call. And you want to see that continue for J-Dub, because if you give J-Dub that whistle while he's on it, and while he's on it from the start to finish, that's where you can see J-Dub take a massive leap in terms of number production. Because as we talked about with Shai on this podcast 3 years ago, the difference in these 5-point differentials of your averages come from the free throw line. And eventually the refs have to start acknowledging that Jalen Williams is one of the best tough shot makers. He is one of the best drivers in the sport, and he is worthy of getting to the line, because frankly, some of these drives, what the defense is doing to them, are illegal in 49 of the 50 states, and they're still not getting a foul call for Oklahoma City. This has been a lament from the Thunder the entire season. This has been something that I think they're right about. I mean, they have a historically low free throw rate. Like, it's not only the lowest in team history, dating back to Seattle, but if the season ended today, which it doesn't, but if it did end today, they would have one of the worst free throw rates in the NBA's history, while being a team that drives more than anybody and a team that takes the ball up at the rim. A team that's predicated on two guys with their entire chunk of their offense that play 35 plus minutes a night, taking the ball up at the rim. So again, I don't know what they have to do to get free throws. They still are not getting them at the rate needed. They still shot less free throw attempts than their opponent. The Rockets shot 39. The Thunder shot 25. And while some of those fouls that the opponents get are reckless fouls, number one, and number two, fouls out of necessity, where it's like, dating back to that streak where the Thunder didn't have a center, of course you're going to foul more because you're playing smaller or swarming the paint, and the Thunder's harassing style leads to more contact. That's all well and true, but that doesn't mean that the contact's not also happening on the other end. No one, I don't think, is petitioning for the Thunder to, not get called for the fouls that they're getting called for. The only petitioning that I see is that the Thunder should also be getting granted the whistle on the other end. So I think it's a situation where you just have to kind of bide your time until you get these reputation calls. But even Shai, who's a superstar, does not always get to the free throw line, much to the dismay and much to the chagrin of Twitter, who thinks that he just lives there, camps out there at the line. He does not in the actual numbers. Coming up, though, we'll talk Isaiah Hartenstein again because he had another double-double. We'll talk about the rest of this team, including why Aaron Wiggins has to play more. But first, I want to say right now, but your friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today because you can get ready to tackle Monday Night Football action at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $5 whenever you place that $5 bet. You place that $5 bet. If you win it, you get $150 in bonus bets. That's at the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It gives you everything to bet on live lines, over under, spreads, player props, all in one place. Go check it out today at FanDuel.com. When you join today, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And perhaps you only really care about the NBA. No worries there. The FanDuel has everything for you to bet on NBA action, including tomorrow, whenever the Celtics and Heat get together. The Celtics, 10.5-point favorites at home over the Miami Heat. Go check it out today at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Well, when you look at this game, it's a rare loss for the Thunder. They're still in a great spot, and we've talked about what went wrong. I think that the one thing that screams out at you is the 27 minutes for Aaron Wiggins. He'd typically been hovering around that 20-minute mark. The boost up to 27 plus for him was a great thing. 6 for 10 from the floor, 1 for 4 from 3. He went for 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 13 points. I think that we're in yet kind of like a twilight zone where yet again, we're sitting here on this podcast pleading for more Aaron Wiggins minutes. And I didn't think that that'd be the case after the extension, but here it is the case again. And the reason why I think that Wiggins should play more is while I understand the need to lean on the defensive chops of some other players on this roster, it's all for naught if you cannot score. And and again, maybe I'm wrong on this. I'll admit that on the front end. Me personally, when I watch this team, I don't see a significant enough drop off defensively from Wiggins to insert, your player here that's been playing to warrant him not playing more than 20 minutes a night whenever he's the very best player on this roster, not named Shai or Jalen, that can get to their spots and create offense. And without offensive lulls at times, this Thunder team can run away with plenty of games. So I just think that Wiggins should be playing more. I thought Wiggins and Wallace did a really good job of being resilient in this game. I mean, this game started out the same way most of them have for the second-year guard. He's been on a brutal cold stretch, but he didn't let that affect him. He didn't let that deter him from shooting. He was clanking open threes, and we can admit that, but he ends the night 3 for 6 from 3 and 5 for 11 from the floor. 14 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, including some timely triples. That was big. That was big time because to start this game, again, he was missing open looks. He was taking the ball up soft and getting rejected at the rim. For a guy who if you just go up more forcefully, you're either going to get fouled or you're going to finish through contact because you're built like a linebacker and you're that talented at the rim. He didn't let that ruin his night. He was able to bounce back mid-game, which is the sign of a really good player. Like, whenever you evaluate players, like you can see some who, if their first couple shots don't go in or the first few possessions don't go their way, they kind of throw their hands up, figuratively throw their hands up. And like they're going through the motions the rest of the game. They're in their head the rest of the game. A credit to Kaysen is his entire season has not gone the way he's wanted offensively. It's never bled over defensively. Defensively, he's still been an absolute menace and one of the best defenders on this roster, which is saying a lot for a historically good defensive team. Offensively, he's also never deterred that from him making the right read, making the right decision, making the right play. If he's open, he still shoots. If he's cutting and he sees a guy cutting with him, he still is able to play make off of that or finish at the rim. Like, he's still been able to make sound decisions with the ball and away from the ball offensively, even while not playing well. And that is a rare trait, and that's why you still feel confident. Even though there's not the production to back it this season, you still feel confident that he's going to sustain a stretch of really good offensive basketball. And that's what you could be in the middle of. It didn't start that way tonight, but he ended the road trip, and on the West Coast side of things, with a more defined playing inside out offensive game. In this game, he ends with a pretty box score and one of his prettier box scores of the season. Now you're going to go play a weaker opponent in Utah. And now you can start to see things snowball in the right direction for Wiggins and Wallace. And I think that that's what will happen for him. I thought that Kenrich Williams was really good. The dust up with Dillon Brooks was fun. But Isaiah Hartenstein again stole the show. I mean, you just cannot get enough of what Hartenstein does. 30 minutes in this game, 19 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block. He's proven that it was not some nerdy, small sample size trick with advanced numbers. He's legitimately an elite rim protector. He's legitimately an elite screen setter. He's legitimately an elite roller. And you saw those playmaking chops from him that has allowed the Thunder's offense to get quality looks. I mean, even if you just look at him on the floor, even the shots that the Thunder miss, if Hartenstein's on the court, more often than not, it is shots that you believe in them to take over and over and over again. For example, he sets a mean screen to separate J-Dub. J-Dub gets to the elbow wide open. J-Dub misses the elbow jumper. It doesn't go down as a screen assist. It doesn't go down as a made shot for Jalen Williams. It doesn't go down as anything. But that act is so repeatable. And even in their misses, it looks so good and looks more functional when Hartenstein is on the floor. And he's been the missing piece. And you just really are even more down on the fact that you haven't got to see him play with Chet yet. And, we'll see at the end of the season what that looks like. But it just proves through 5 games that Sam Presti made the exact right decision. This was the guy to go give all your money to. This was the guy to hitch your wagon to. This was the guy to fix your problems, because not only does he have the pure size and the pure rebounding to fix your 2 biggest issues from a year ago, he doesn't abandon what the Thunder are about. And frankly, a lot of guys who you all wanted in the comment section, like from a year ago, to go get a quick fix on the trade market for that team last year, a lot of those guys, they were big in name only. Either A, they were just big and didn't have the production, or B, yeah, they were big guys and they theoretically fix your rebounding and size, but they abandon every principle the Thunder have. Hartenstein is the only guy really in the NBA, besides the center you already had in Chet Holmgren, who plays this position, who plays it really well, and who plays it to the Thunder's identity. They realized that. They went and got him. It is just a match made in heaven between Hartenstein and Oklahoma City. And that will continue to grow. And they're 4-1 when he's on the court. And I think that the stat was like whenever Chet and Hartenstein play, they're 12-2. Like this team is just sensational whenever you give them a caliber of center like that. You even saw Hartenstein today take a 3. Like take a 3-pointer. He missed, but it looked confident. It looked smooth. And I wonder how much more of that you're going to see. This is just a guess, but like that 3 was set up because of how teams are sagging off of him whenever he gets the ball, because a screen's coming, you're playing drop, you're gearing up for a DHO. And how many times is he going to just pivot around and shoot a 3? He did it tonight. We'll see if he continues to do that, if he continues to grow with that. He's talked about how Mark has the green light on him, a green light that he's rarely felt in his career. Mark's talked about how the Thunder have empowered him to shoot the ball. Even Sam Presti talked about how the Thunder empowered him to shoot the ball. So this is something that everybody's comfortable with. This is the first time he's done it in 5 games. I wonder what that trend looks like for Hartenstein from beyond the arc. We'll have plenty more to talk about from this game and from this road trip on tomorrow's show as we get you ready for the NBA Cup against the Utah Jazz and so much more. So subscribe to Locked On Thunder anywhere you get your podcast from, including on YouTube. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.